Okay, all right. Oh, it's another great Monday.
No, it isn't.
Everybody. It's a little chilly, and wow, weird voice in my intro. I didn't like that at all. But I do like all of you here tonight. We're going to talk about our first Star Wars books tonight, what got us into reading, how lost were we without UTD existing. We hope to share some. We can't wait to hear about yours as well, and maybe there was a little trailer drop we'll talk about later on. All right, Wes.
Wes, punch it!
No! Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Living Force, a Utini Network podcast all about the Star Wars books we read first, tonight at least. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me on this post-Michigan State and Cowboys victory weekend is all my best buddies, starting off with a man who doesn't give a shit about either one of those, Dr. Corey Helton.
I don't care about sports at all. That's my intro.
Cool.
That's it. Yeah, dude. I don't watch sports. Yeah, but listen, I'm still recovering. I had a house party on the weekend for Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody, by the way.
Happy Halloween!
Did you guys do anything for Halloween that was interesting or fun?
No. I had one crazy night that was like the go to a friend's place that had like an alcoholic slushy machine, which was rad.
Nice.
Played Flip Cup for the first time in 6 years. One of those. And then I had also a like chill, watch some fun Halloween movies, like 5 people hangout night. So I got both ends. I really like that. What about you, Dr. Charles Hankel? How was your Halloween?
Hey, mine was okay. I watched Halloween 2 while working in the hospital. Halloween 2 is set in a hospital, for those of you that haven't seen it.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I worked from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and was scared for my life for the rest of the shift because I decided to watch that movie.
Well, you know what? You wouldn't have been scared if you had the gloriously masculine, comforting presence of the man, the myth, the legend, the fan of the still down in the World Series Houston Astros, Wes Jenkins.
Hey, everyone. So my Halloween story, I just handed out candy yesterday. But one person had come up to the door, and he was in some sort of costume. Couldn't really tell because all those kid costumes are crap to begin with. But I was wearing
Tell him.
hot take. I had my candy in the popcorn bucket from The Last Jedi that I had. And like, oh, you like Star Wars? And I said, of course I like Star Wars. Do you like Star Wars? He said, yeah, I like Star Wars a lot. And he pulled his mask down. He was the Mandalorian. And I was like, oh, I really do like your costume. How dare I? And then
That's awesome.
Then I was gonna be like, hey, wait 1 second. I was gonna like go get my Mando helmet and show him all these books and shit. And I was just like, oh man, I might the mom and dad might get kind of freaked out that I'm like enticing him into my house. Come here,
I'll show you. Well, we tried. We all try to entice children into our homes as often as possible.
Wow. You just said that on the internet,
no,
Eric. What the hell is
I
wrong
just
with you?
go with it. I yes and myself, chums. But I hope you all had a great Halloween weekend out there. If you're watching or listening, I hope you had a lovely weekend. I hope you got plenty of candy and all that stuff. And hey, you know what? If you already got your Christmas tree up, power to you. It's time. Mariah Carey has risen from her grave. She is ready to go.
I saw a meme the other day that said that it's November 1st or whatever. Mariah Carey's defrosting.
Yeah, man.
Got me.
I'm all into it.
I went to Lowe's today, and they were furiously putting up the Christmas decorations, like aggressively.
Good.
Like they had a team meeting this morning, and the manager was like, "All right, Santa's coming to town. All right." I mean, seriously, like I've never seen so many Lowe's employees in the same place. And they were like running around. It was insane. Like it was.
Well, bless them.
It was insane.
Bless them. On that note, 2 things on the holiday season. 1, before we get any further, make sure if you're watching us, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We did hit over 2,000 subscribers on the Utini YouTube channel, and every like and comment helps the algorithm, helps people join the Utini family. And if you're listening on audio, we haven't said this in forever. If you haven't yet, leave us a review on your favorite podcast provider. Those do help people find us as well. We love this community that we have. We love all our regular listeners. But hey, it would also always help to have a couple more now and then. So thank you in advance. But also thank you in advance. Back to the holiday thing. This holiday season, there are going to be delays. If you're buying things for folks, for whatever holiday you're celebrating, make sure you get those orders in early so shipping times can happen. If you're buying a book, as we've said for months, make sure you're pre-ordering them because they're going to be hard to get. And please, please, please know that if you're going to a store to buy a thing, the people that are making minimum wage at that store are not at fault for the thing not being there. So I know our community's great. I know if you're watching this video, you're probably a chill person. Just let's keep it chill. Let's keep it chill for the holiday season. I think it's going to be a little bit of a rough one.
Remember, in the words of Obi-Wan, don't be an asshole.
That's right. Episode 4.
That's right.
A couple things in the intro. I know. It's in the extended edition that was made in 1989. That's a lie. So this weekend brought a couple great things. It brought a Michigan State victory. So to all my fellow Spartans out there, I know Mike in Discord always posts Spartan stuff with me. And to all the others, go green, go white. I screamed louder than I screamed ever alone in my apartment when we won. To all you event fans, it was a great game. Look forward to next year. I love being number 5 in the nation. The Utini fantasy update, though, was my karmic balance. I lost again. Because here's the thing, everyone.
Good.
I'm really bad at fantasy football in Utini. I don't know what's happening.
Good.
I lose all the time.
Glad.
But shout out, my partner Charlie won this week. Very proud of her. She's been dealing with a lot of injuries, a lot of injured reserve. She beat Andrew, who had a really rough time, especially now Derrick Henry's gonna be on IR for a while. Wes, as we're doing the show tonight, you are in flux with our very own Paul Matthews. How you feeling tonight? How you feeling about your chances?
Paul Matthews, yeah, he is beating me at the moment. So
at the moment,
he's like 58% going to win. But
yes,
but I have Daniel Jones, quarterback of the Giants, and Travis Kelce going tonight. I think I need to make up somewhere around 40 points.
You need 30 points. He's beating you by 30 exactly.
I have a good shot, but he also has the Butker. The Butker is the kicker of the Chiefs, so he might be.
Harrison Butker is the kicker.
Butker is the kicker for the Chiefs, and so he's going to be adding on points for me to try to make up to. But it's been a long time where my team has been like at the wire. I usually get blown out by like Sunday at 3:00. So this is exciting for me.
Exciting again. Well, we'll keep you all posted by the end of the show and see how Wes is doing. And of course, for all of our friends at this point, as we're recording, the World Series is still going. So if whatever fan of whatever team you are, if you're on Wes's side or you're with the rest of the country, I hope you're enjoying it. World Series is always fun. I love the playoff sports. All right. But what I love more than that, believe it or not, is our Patreon community.
Money.
We have to thank yes, I love money. And our 2 new patrons, Lane Dudley and Jesse Gonzalez, joined the family this past week because they wanted to hear our Attack of the Clones commentary, which we did record Friday night. It was an absolute blast. Corey's reminder, you got to edit it.
I do. This week I'm going to.
And it's coming your way. By the time this is posted for our audio listeners, it should be up on Patreon.
Yeah, I'll get it done.
Guys, brief preview. How was that compared to our?
Dude, that was fun.
It was just
fun.
A blast.
I really enjoy these commentaries. I think we can be a lot more candid when it's just the 4 of us together, and like it's fun, man. And this was Attack of the Clones is notoriously the most criticized of all of the Star Wars films, so it was fun to crap on some of the really bad lines. It was we had a good time.
There's a good chunk of about 10 to 15 seconds that I'm going to memorize for the rest of my life to haunt Corey with.
Yeah, that's right.
But there were also some good little anecdotes in there that I didn't know about, which is cool about why we do these commentaries. So, and I had a question at the end that is still to be answered. So hopefully I can get an answer back on Discord or something whenever y'all.
Yeah, our patrons. See if you can answer Wes's question and know that, like you said, in the first, I think, literally 10 minutes of the recording, I said something I forgot what it was, and Corey, you were like, "Wait, what?" So we all learn things during these, which are super fun. So look forward to that on your Patreon feed, and we will be recording the Rogue One video commentary. We're trying to get it in before Thanksgiving because, life is what it is, but we really want to get that recorded before Thanksgiving so you all have that over the break, that you can enjoy a film that I don't think could be any more different than Attack of the Clones in every single way.
The
But that's great about
commentary is
Star
going to
Wars.
be really boring because there's just going to be silence. When we're
Just
not going
be
to
like-
have anything to say. Just be like
Every 5 minutes, it's like,
grunting.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Right there.
How
That's
profound.
it.
and that's our ASMR. But look forward to that. Again, thank you to all of our patrons. You allow us to do all this stuff. We just recently took inventory of all the equipment that we have on all of our shows, and you are the reason that we get to improve mic quality and lighting setups, and the reason that like these products get created every week, and we don't have to worry about going into massive debt for it. So thank you all so much. But thank you most importantly, Charles, to our patron of the week. Who do we got this week?
Oh, this week we have Alex, aka TK501.
That's right.
All right, cool. And Alex says, "Hi everyone. My name is Alex Hanlon. I'm from Orange County, California. A few quick things about me. I'm a Christian first and foremost. I work as an accountant for a dermatology corporation. Love to listen to my vinyl record collection. Spend time at Disneyland with my girlfriend. Perform on stage in plays and musicals, also with my girlfriend. And I absolutely love Star Wars. My parents got me into Star Wars from an early age. When I was around 3, my parents took me to see the special edition of Return of the Jedi in theaters. I still have my special edition Luke Skywalker action figure that the movie theater gave away that night. I remember vividly going to see The Phantom Menace at a midnight premiere with my dad. We had to sit right up front, and I just remember being in awe of Darth Maul on the screen. My dad would take me to Target and Toys R Us, and we would collect all the action figures. About 4 years ago, I started getting into all the canon books and comics and have totally loved everything. I've asked my girlfriend, what is my favorite Star Wars story? And she immediately replied with, you have a soft spot for Anakin's story. Part of the reason Anakin fell to the dark side is because he was willing to do anything for his love, Padme. He's a huge crybaby sometimes, but his passion and loyalty towards the people he loves is incredible. I started watching and listening to Utini because of the roundtables. After that, I was hooked and joined the Patreon. I absolutely love the Star Wars community. It has been so much fun in the Discord, and it was incredible to meet Eric and Charlie at Disneyland recently. My question for our hosts, what in this world, if anything, is more precious and exciting to you than Star Wars? My answer would be the amazing and loving friendship I have with my girlfriend. I wouldn't trade that for the world. Thanks, you guys. Thank
Aw,
you,
man.
Alex.
Yeah, I've never seen
you,
someone
Alex.
gain more points in a relationship during a Patreon reading. Well done. But also, if you're audio listening, that we put a picture up of me and Charlie meeting Alex and his girlfriend at Disneyland. And Alex, you are one of just the nicest, just legit dudes. And your girlfriend was absolutely lovely. We had a great time on my first time on Star Tours. I got to experience that
Nice.
with Alex's girlfriend. We went to Naboo and Kashyyyk, and it was just a blast. So yeah, you've been awesome in this community. Love meeting you. All right, guys. If anything is more precious to us than Star Wars, let's take out personal relationships because Alex got that covered.
Nothing.
What in
Next
the world?
question.
All right, Corey, nothing. Good, correct. You stay on the show. This is a test.
Oh Lord.
Oh man,
This
I don't-
podcast, this podcast
Yeah, that's true.
counts.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know that's kind
sure.
of
Good one.
That's kind of
No.
talking about relationships in and of
Yeah.
itself, but like this time.
Whoa,
is
don't
very
label
precious
this,
to me.
Charles. This is casual. This is chill.
This-
Don't make it weird. I don't
I'm
want to label it.
DTRing on the air. We are co-hosts, Eric.
Oh my gosh, such a simp for me, Charles. All right.
That's a. I mean, that's a good answer. This little community was
Yeah,
built
yeah.
both in our team and in our Star Wars community is way more important to me than just
Yeah.
the fact that we get movies and TV shows and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's a good one.
That's a good
Yeah,
answer.
I like that, and I'll add I think one thing that's more recent for me is it's kind of related to it as well. More precious than Star Wars as a whole, I think, is just the idea of being passionate about stuff. Like over the last years, whether it be like football, or whether it be Star Wars, or whether it be my relationships, like I think I've put a lot more value on just being kind of overtly passionate about things. And I think Star Wars is absolutely the gateway, and y'all were the gateway, like this community and you guys allowing me to actually do that publicly. And now, like with everything, I'm like, why not? And I think that's been a really cool build. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, beer!
Alex-
I forgot about beer.
Oh, beer and Zaxby's.
Beer
yeah.
and Zaxby's.
Yeah, there
Well,
we go.
I mean, because of Star Wars, it got me reading books again. Like I wasn't a big reader
Real,
before
yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
reading Star Wars, so it kind of helped me get back into reading books, and it helps me with like research and corresponding with people better, and using my
Vocabulary. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Word of the
Everything
day.
they said school would do.
I'm gonna buy you a Star Wars
was
Word of the
good.
Day calendar.
It was good.
I like it. I liked it much so.
Wes does speak very good now. Thanks.
It does. Goodly. It's an adverb. So Alex, thank you for your for one being part of your Patreon community. Obviously, thanks for your message, and to everyone else at our Patreon, keep your eyes out. Timothy, our Discord and Patreon manager, and also Discord mod. He swings that band hammer now and then.
Discord mom.
Discord mom. He is. He may reach out to you, and you may be our next patron of the week. All right, now let's go to a very unexpected Star Wars Weekly Roundup.
Oh boy.
All right, everybody. When I woke up today, I knew I had work to go to. I knew that I had a show to do at night. I knew what I'd have for lunch. I had no idea we'd be getting a brand new freaking Star Wars trailer this morning. The Book of Boba Fett trailer. It dropped, and it was dope. And you know what? Before I say anything else, we have hooked it up. We're going to watch this live. The four of us have not watched it together. We've each watched it once. Let's watch it live. You in the chat, we want to watch it with you as well. Let's react openly as we watch, and then let's talk about it. Sound good?
No.
Sounds good to us.
Play that beautiful music. Don't copyright strike us.
Oh yeah, let me take off the closed captions real fast. Yeah,
I need some
dismiss.
reaction faces from you fools.
All right, here's how we clip it. Yeah, Charles, you suck.
I'm not doing that. I'm going to be genuine.
Make
I'm
an,
gonna be
make an
All right.
unhappy face. Let's all pretend. We need a clickbait. We'd be like,
Ugh, Star Wars.
"This sucks. Boo, boo." All right,
All
you
right.
guys ready?
Here we go.
That was unnecessary.
We got this. Here we go.
I am not a bounty hunter.
What a dope intro.
I've heard otherwise.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
It's the Ithorian we see in a little bit.
Oh,
But I think it might be the voice of Pedro Pascal. I don't know. But it sounds like him.
I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer.
Speaking out of his neck mouth.
Yeah.
destroy my eardrums really fast.
Everybody's got a real powered up gun.
Respect.
I rule with respect, but also I might kill you. Like, if you respect me, we're good.
You were all once captains under Jabba the Hutt.
I'm here to
This
make a
Trandoshan makeup is
proposal that's
dope.
mutually beneficial.
There's
Why
the
speak
size of that
conflict?
palace.
One corporation can make us all rich.
I want to know who these Twi'leks are. I'm so interested.
What prevents us all from killing you and taking what we want?
Oh, we got Attack of the Clones right there for that helmet roll.
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
Hell yeah.
Please. Speak freely.
I love that line.
Power move. Let me know what you think.
Oh my god.
That music, though.
This is heavy, man.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it totally is.
Can we just take a second to be like, hey, you know what we did?
57 Eastern. Did you see that clip?
57. It's not 57 seconds. Remember how when The Mandalorian first happened, everyone's like, this better not be about Boba Fett. This will be stupid. And now we're like, there's a Boba Fett show.
Man, yeah, seriously. I posted in Slack earlier. This is like a childhood dream realized for
Right.
me, man. I've always loved Boba Fett. Like, so to finally get like its own dedicated thing, and it looks phenomenal. I love it. Real strong. I think somebody, real strong Godfather vibes. what I'm trying to
Godfather,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Say whatever
I
you
love
want.
how,
It's fine. No, I'm gonna put this armor on. No reason. No, keep talking. Keep talking. That's fine. Go ahead.
I love how we got a trailer, but we learned nothing.
Yeah, I know.
We learned
It's true.
Yes.
It does feel like there's no information in this trailer, which is not a bad thing.
No.
Right? But probably
No.
just going off of recent history, every shot that we just saw except for maybe like one or two, is from like the first 2 episodes of the show. So
Exactly. I mean, we always talk about whenever we see trailers nowadays. It's like, well, why don't give me the whole movie? Like, I don't want to see the thing. We're already watching it. They're only doing a trailer because they like probably legally need to with their marketing department. Like, if you're gonna watch it, you're gonna watch it anyway at this point. So I'm glad that it was very vague. We got the aesthetic. We saw the armor. Got some fighting. No, those shields that they had, those looked like the Colin Crystal shields from Master and Apprentice, and I don't think they are. But I like them, and they're cool.
They do. Interesting. And I love that he's fighting helmetless in that scene, too. That looks really cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
he spent a lot of time with the helmet off, actually.
In the trailer.
Very anti-Mando of him.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get used to him not having like any eyebrows and stuff.
Yeah, and he's like bald. I'm like, okay though. But he looks awesome. I mean, Fennec looks amazing. I think there's just gonna be a lot more fights in this than there are in Mando. It just seems like it's gonna be a lot more of a brutal kind of show.
Yeah.
Very alien centric too. I think someone brought that up in our Slack or in Discord earlier. I can't remember, but
That's true.
a lot of different species represented in like a 1-minute trailer.
Like Aqualicious and Twi'leks and Trandoshans, like a lot of those. The big thing about the sequel trilogy, a lot of people were like, "Where's the classic aliens?" Like, well, we're on Tatooine, so we know what kind of aliens are on Tatooine.
Yeah.
But do you guys know what that giant? I've seen this a lot. What that giant city is? Because that's not Mos Eisley. Is it Mos Espa? Like, is it one of the Moses?
It's massive, is what it is. That's all I know.
Yeah.
That was actually my favorite shot of the whole trailer. Weirdly enough, was seeing that scope because everything else looked a lot smaller in scope, but that one scene really got me.
It's the mostest with the mostest.
It's in a crater. The city's in like a crater kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think the property that's like tucked up against the wall, it's like the most valuable because it's like kind of shady during the day?
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have no
Is there any green around it?
Yeah.
It's like Waterworld, that great movie that should have won an Oscar.
That's the one. I also love that they did leak on Twitter the first Funko of Boba Fett in the armor for this show specifically. It isn't out yet, but you know, us in the Funko collecting community are already ready to spend all of our money on pops that we already have, but they look slightly different. I'm gonna own so many Boba Fett pops. It's gonna be wild, but cannot wait. This looks awesome.
We also got not a trailer. Sorry, we did get a trailer. We got a poster today too.
Oh yes,
which was pretty sick. This looks.
Oh my goodness!
I'm really glad that Fennec Shan is going to be a major featured character in this.
Me too.
Yup.
She's turning into one of my favorite villains, especially because she's part droid now. Super cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh damn it! Spoiler alert! Shit. Oh god. I did it again.
No, I will always remember that when she came on, they're like, "Oh my god, they wasted her in one episode and she died." And I'm like, "Have we never seen Star Wars ever?"
Maul got
like,
cut in half.
now.
Like,
Yeah.
not anatomically possible.
Yeah, I'm very stoked about
Palpatine got
this.
thrown down a shaft.
A couple times, right? Then he get where else did he? Oh no, he got yeeted once.
What's wrong,
So far.
Lassie? Timmy Funfallen well? That, but, you know.
That's it. No, you nailed it. I'm proud of you.
I got you.
But December 29th, it's coming. I don't need any more trailers. I'm good. I don't want any more clips. I'm good. We're gonna watch it, right?
Okay.
Only other thing we want to talk about is we want to give a quick shout out to a bunch of podcasts in the Star Wars community because this Saturday, so if you're listening to this on Friday on audio, you still have time. Tomorrow, if it's Friday, the Make-A-Wish Podathon is going on, and there is a ton of awesome podcasts and YouTubers in the Star Wars community that are coming together to do a I think it's 15 hours in a row podcast event. And we got people like Blue Bantha, we got Star Wars Explained, we got Around the Galaxy. Just tons of people are coming together to do an awesome event, and they're doing live streams. They're going to interview Charles Soule. They're going to interview Claudia Gray. They're going to interview Matt Martin. There's a bunch of people are coming on to talk with some of your favorite podcasters, and everything is going to help Make-A-Wish. And I'm like, this is awesome. And we just wanted to say just a quick shout out because a lot of these times we just do our podcast, we have a good time, but every once in a while it's nice to remember that the Star Wars community can come together and help people a lot. And this is the graphic. We just threw it up here. Oh yeah, Mr. Kim himself is gonna come on as well, and yeah, just congrats to all those guys for coordinating. Oh, our buddies at Pink Milk are gonna be on there. Brian, who was on the show, is gonna do a show as well. The guys at Bro Axiom. So if you're around on Saturday and you got some YouTube time, head on over. It's on all the Twitters of all these different podcasts. We retweeted it as well for Podathon. Go hang out. Throw some donations their way for the beginning of the holiday season and help the folks at Make-A-Wish. So well done, everybody. And of course, if you're doing some shopping of your own, be sure to buy some Star Wars books. Go to UTini release calendar. We just put out an article today. Our very own Meg Dowell put out everything that's coming out in November, and it is massive. We have so many releases with comics and books and all kinds of things coming up. So make sure you go check out that article on UTini and then go to the release schedule. Pre-order Thrawn Ascendancy Lesser Evil. That's coming out in 2 weeks. And
Holy
order.
smokes.
Yeah, buddy. I got to finish that by next week. I will try. And also get the High Republic Fallen Star on January 4th. Start out the new year with the High Republic and some devastation. Woo! All right. After all of that, we have one book review this week. Charles, would you like to read that for us, pretty please?
Sure. This is a book review from Ultimate Sauce 8. Wonder what happened to the first Ultimate 7 sauces. And Ultimate Sauce 8 read Thrawn by Timothy Zahn, gave it 5 stars and said, an origin story done right. This novel tells the surprisingly complex story of Thrawn's quick rise through the Imperial Navy hierarchy to where we see him as a Grand Admiral in Star Wars Rebels. This book serves as a prequel to Rebels Season 3, but it not only does that flawlessly, it also brings in a semi-prominent Clone Wars character to tickle nostalgia. Thrawn is more about... I don't know what this sentence is.
Oh, I usually edit the formatting messed it up. I got you. There you go, buddy.
Thrawn is accompanied throughout this novel with his aide Eli Vanto. From this novel, it is easy to get why Eli has become such a fan favorite since his first appearances. On the other hand, the supporting cast is, for me, the most difficult part with this novel, as there's just so many people to keep track of. This could easily have been solved by the addition of a dramatis personae, something that has been added to Thrawn Ascendancy Greater Good. But for someone who doesn't really struggle remembering character names, this was slightly worse than usual. Overall, this novel certainly lives up to the original Legends Thrawn trilogy, even surpassing it in my opinion. So you should really check out this essential novel.
Very good. Did you choose this because I recently read this? Is that why you picked this?
You know I did.
Yeah, I was hoping you did. I was hoping to get to talk about this. So you guys know I've been on a rereading kick lately as I'm finishing up the camper, as if I need anything else to read. Good Lord.
That's right.
and I recently did Thrawn. I finished it like last week, I think. And funny, I previously said this is in my top 5 of all canon novels. And this might be the first time ever that I've read a novel and liked it less the second time, which is super bizarre.
Wild.
It is.
That doesn't happen.
It's never happened before. Yeah, I liked it less this time around. I don't know why exactly that is. We were talking a little bit about that. I think me and you were talking about that, Eric. I'm not really sure why I liked it less this time around. I think it's just because this novel reintroduced Thrawn to canon, so it had to both teach new readers about Thrawn and also sort of introduce his, I don't know, Sherlock Holmesy, super overpowered, yes, and this thing happened, and that's why it's obvious that this thing happened. He does that. He does that crap, right? And it's a little overdone, I think, in this book compared to his to Zahn's later books, and I just in the plot is just not quite as strong. And also, my theory is that because we're getting his military rise to power and the Chiss ascendancy in the Thrawn Ascendancy series, his rise to power in the Empire through becoming a cadet and then becoming a captain, and his he climbs through the ranks or whatever. It feels lessened a little bit to me now, which is kind of weird.
Interesting.
I think I loved that military thing about it the first time I read it, but now we have a much better, longer forms version of that. And I don't know, it kind of went down. I don't know if it's still in my top 5. It might be still. I did really enjoy it at the end. I just I used to like hero worship the book. I think.
Yeah, it was like your
and,
fave.
Yeah, it was like my favorite, and it is. I don't think it's that anymore. So it was interesting, but definitely
a lot of books come out. You know.
Yeah. It's early. I think this was like the turning point for me in Star Wars canon, though. Because there was like there were not a lot of books that had come out at this point.
Mm-hmm.
This was the first time we got a. It's the first time we got a like an old author brought back with Timothy Zahn. What the hell was that?
Steven Smith got the super chat.
Oh, it's money. Oh, it's money. Okay, hello.
Hey, he complimented my Endor mug from Galaxy's Edge. Thanks, Steven.
Oh,
I also really like that mug.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
giving
the
you
best
$4.99.
mug. It's a 5-star mug, just like Thrawn, according to Ultimate Sauce 8. And even though Corey absolutely hates it now, as you all heard.
No, it sucks. Star Wars
It's
is
like-
dead.
It's just like rewatching the movies like we did Attack of the Clones. Like, you learn something new every time, whether it be good or bad, then it kind of could sway your opinion about it now, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
That's
right.
exactly it.
yeah,
But funny enough. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I know
No,
I
just-
haven't re-listened or reread a lot of Star Wars books, so maybe it might be the same for a lot of us if we go back
Yeah.
and read like, because you're right, we do have that extra background about Thrawn now. So if we go back and read like the origin canon,
What does it mean now?
Yeah. Is
It was
is it that good?
I will say it was interesting to go back and think about, okay, Thrawn has basically been like one of the highest like levels of leadership in the Ascendancy, and now he goes back to being a cadet, and he's like getting bullied by other cadets and stuff, and he's like, dude, this
Sucks.
guy knows so much more than literally everybody else here. Like, I don't know, that was kind of fun to be in a situation,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, if you want to reread your books and then you change your opinion, you can always go find your book on utini.com, look up the book details, and leave a review. If you've already reviewed it, do it again and do your reread. Maybe your rating changes. That's also super fun. Helps people on their own Star Wars journey. And right after this break we're about to take, we're going to talk about our first books that maybe we reread, maybe we never have at all. Spoilers, one of mine is Thrawn. So let's take a quick break with some new clips that we got together of our other live shows, and then we will talk about our first ever Star Wars books. Be right back.
And the odd. Like we see a Jedi Knight, Obi-Wan, jousting with a villain made out of bubble gum.
Where did he get bubble gum on such short notice?
Bubble gum.
Dengar and Boba Fett have such a fun bromance in Legends, which is cool.
Yeah.
They're more of a rivalry in canon, but because Dengar's a little derpier in canon. In Legends, they are such a fun pair because Dengar saves him from Starlight.
It is kind of heavy with her and her dad's relationship, and they're trying to figure it out, but then they're killing a guy in the bathroom, so it's okay.
I want to have something matching. We look like freaking 3D glasses up here, but
All right, everyone. Lovely ad, lovely other shows. I just like what we do here. It's a lot of fun. And real quick, since we've been going west, Daniel Jones has gotten you negative fantasy points because he threw an interception. All right. So
Not surprising.
So tonight, we are going to go over our first Star Wars books. We each picked our first, 5 to 10, whatever Star Wars books we read, and we're going to go through our journeys because at Utini, when we first started it, as you learned in our history episode, after it was just about making money, it was then about how do we get people to read Star Wars books for the first time? How do we make that easier? Because I'm pretty sure we all did it wrong.
right.
We all did it in a very difficult way. So we're like, why not have an episode that's all about showing our dirty laundry and talking about how we got into Star Wars books? So, guys, Corey, your story is known the most, but let's recap. Let's start off with a bang with the most invincible book. Let's go. What was your first Star Wars book, Corey?
Here it is. It's right
Show it
here. It's
off.
Invincible by
There
Troy
it
Denning.
is.
All right, that's enough. Moving on.
Ridiculous.
I know.
It's Invincible
No,
by Troy
I
Denning.
read Invincible by Troy Denning, and I've had a little bit of doubt about this recently. If this was actually the first book I read, which is crazy because I've talked about it endlessly. Because this book was released in 2008, and I swear I was younger than like ninth grade or 8th grade when I read my first Star Wars book. So, but maybe I guess I'm not. I mean, it has all the characteristics of like an early read. Like I used to do this like a freaking weirdo. I don't know if you can see this in my camera, but there is tape. I don't know
Oh,
if
you
can see any
taped the
glare.
dust jacket
Yeah,
in.
I used to tape
Okay.
dust jackets in like some kind of monster.
Wow.
So,
No.
Like a monster.
I
It's
know,
a good
like
idea.
like a monster. Yeah, this is the last book in the Legacy of the Force series. I actually have that pulled up here. The Legacy of the Force series takes place 30 years or so after Return of the Jedi, and Invincible is the very last one. And I recently talked about this on another podcast that we have on Star Wars Archives. Yep.
That was a great episode. I listened to it yesterday.
Nice. I'm glad you enjoyed
was
that.
hilarious.
I got
It
to
was great.
flex some Legends muscles a little bit on that show, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So Corey, we'll do this with every book. How did you decide on that one? And do you think, in retrospect, it was a good idea?
I'm gonna say no.
Well, this you can tell it's got a cool cover, right? So
Yeah, I
it's
like
this.
It has
yeah,
a pretty lady.
yeah, it has a pretty lady, and she looks kind of fearsome and scary, right? And she
Yeah.
is fighting somebody with a red lightsaber who you can't really see. And I don't know. It was a hardcover. There weren't a lot of hardcovers. It's got this cool symbol thing, and it says "Legacy of the Force." Like I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about it, and I didn't even learn that in the beginning of these books they have the old Legends timeline. or whatever.
Yup.
Oh, show
Is
us.
that even in this? I don't even know if that's.
No,
in
It's
this.
not the
Tease me.
hardcover. It's got to be.
I don't know if it is. Actually, I don't think it is. Let's see here. Sorry, here's some silence. Here's
You know your
Great
posters
audios.
are uneven on your wall? Did you know that?
Shut up. No, there is not. There is not a timeline in this.
So you
book.
couldn't have known.
Oh, weird.
Wow, that
You
must
couldn't
be.
have known.
At
must
what
be why.
point, though? At what point? What page number do you think you were first like?
You were like,
feels like there's a lot going on here, Like,
Dude, like freaking immediately, absolutely immediately. The book opens with crazy stuff.
Where did you buy it?
The book, like Barnes and Noble, the book opens with Jaina Solo. So you immediately, that's literally the first two words is Jaina Solo. So immediately you're
and
like,
you're like, who is James?
who the hell is this?
Boy or
Yeah,
girl?
exactly. Like there's no indication where where we are in the timeline. There's no indication anywhere in
Wow.
this book that this is like book 9 in a 9-book series. Like it's really terrible marketing on Star Wars part.
I
Like,
asked you
it's
where you
Star
bought
Wars'
it
fault, for
because
sure.
how is it shelved in Barnes and Noble? Was there a bunch of books before it?
I don't think I don't probably
Gosh.
maybe I don't know. I mean,
I have
you
no
go to
idea.
the Star Wars section now and there's no rhyme or reason
Yeah.
to it.
Right.
Right, no,
So-
not at all.
Yeah.
Well, and this is interesting because I think one thing we don't talk about, I don't think we've ever really talked about this, is that the design of book covers is actually still a thing. Like, don't judge a book by its cover is total crap. Like,
Yeah,
we always
absolutely.
do. So I think
Absolutely.
that
Subconsciously.
the fact that
That's probably
Yeah,
been
the
proven
fact that-
too in research.
easily the fact that the covers of the High Republic books, especially, we talk about how cool the art style is so helpful. And the Thrawn Ascendancy novels, again, get your pre-orders in, literally have 1, 2, and 3 on the spines. So we've learned a couple things.
Yeah.
So Invincible, number
It was
1,
weird.
you got lucky.
I mean, I'm thankful for this experience
Yeah.
because this is largely why I created Utini, is because I
Right.
did this. I read a final book in a very complex series, and it totally hooked me in. And I talked about that a little bit on Star Wars Archives, but I think it was just the magic mix of addiction for me, right? Because it was Star Wars, it was way over my head, and something that I really wanted to understand, which is that's how I get hooked and have some kind
You
of
like the
manic
puzzle
episode.
of it.
Yeah, I like the puzzle of it. So I was just immediately hooked, and this would be my first. If I were really to choose my first 10 books, and we only talked about individual books, this would be my first 10 because I read this entire series. I went back and figured out that it was in order, and I must have found a paperback that had the timeline in it. So I didn't realize that
Yeah.
actually until just now that there's not a timeline in that book. That is weird.
Glad they added it, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
All
me
right,
too.
we got in the chat right now. We got Aaron and Moonflyer both said that they both got Heir of the Empire in '91.
Wow.
So that's, I think, the most OG kind of traditional way you can go. Wes, what was your first Star Wars book?
So, little story before I provide my first Star Wars book.
Please. Please do.
So I was at a buddy's house, and I got into Star Wars books way after you guys. So it was probably a year or two after I got out of college. So like 2010-ish, 2010, 2011 maybe. And I went over to a friend's house, and he had 3 books that were on the floor in his room. One was Darth Plagueis. Second one was Darth Bane. And the third one was the Vader book.
Dark Lord of the Sith?
Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. Yeah. And I was like, what are these?
Is your friend like a supervillain? Because these are all like.
This is awesome. I love this
right?
dude.
Cool villain origin story, 100%.
Kyle, shout out. All right. So I was like, what are these? And I was like, I've seen the movies. I love the movies. He's like, these are like extensions of the movies. And I was like, you don't say. And I wanted to borrow them. And then I went back home, and then I started Googling, what are the best Star Wars books to read? What are the top 10 Star Wars books to read? It took me a long time to find a list of books that were, on par to top 10. So, but I settled on Star Wars Heir to the Empire.
Nice.
Hey!
They said this is the first trilogy that you need to read if you're going to start any Star Wars book. So I got Heir to the Empire. I thought I was getting the original cover, and I kind of got bummed out when I got the regular cover because I was already in that camp. Like, I want the originals. I haven't even started reading these damn things yet. But funny thing, when I'm like throughout the entire book, it's Joris Kyboth. It's Kyboth. It's Master Kyboth to me, and it always will be. And I'm sure Jared is turning over right now at his house. And Sabaoth is something that doesn't resonate with me whatsoever. But now I understand his name is Sabaoth. But yes, fantastic series. I'll just say the trilogy itself was my first set of books that I read. I probably couldn't have started out any better.
Yeah.
Because Zahn did a tremendous job in providing me with this new character of Thrawn that I've never read about before. I actually got the original cover for Dark Force Rising.
Sick.
Nice.
And then I got the normal cover for The Last Command, but we're not going to talk about that. So that was my first trilogy of books. I'll just lump it all into one, but I think that's probably a good start if you were going to start reading Star Wars books. As a whole. And when we were going through this, I like all of my first books are Legends books, and I was like, hell yeah.
There you go. You did it.
I exclusive. Obviously, it was probably 08, 09 too, apparently. So I only played with the Utini timelines at the Legends side, looking at looking for books. Heir to the Empire was very early for me too, and unlike this poser, I do have the original covers, and funny enough,
the paperbacks.
I know the paperbacks with this wild cover. If you've never seen Heir to the Empire cover, the old one,
Lightning fingers.
I know, lightning fingers, absolutely insane. This was you guys know I'm not much of a collector, so I've really let a lot of my books go over the years, but I have held on. This is like the only trilogy I have. I don't have my original Bane books. I don't know what happened to them. But I do have my original Heir to the Empire books, and I need to go back and listen to these because not all the new audiobooks are out, right? Only the first 2, I think.
Only Heir so far, I believe.
Only Heir. No,
no kidding. I didn't know that.
No. I thought
did they even do Heir?
I think they released the second one.
Everyone paused.
I don't know. All right, so what we're talking about is the Essential Legends collection, and when they're doing those, aren't they releasing new versions of all the audiobooks?
Not all. There's only one audiobook each set.
Oh, okay.
And they didn't. It was Shatterpoint the first one, so they didn't even do Heir.
All right, maybe they didn't redo it. I don't know if there is an unabridged audiobook of this. I don't know if there is or not. I bet there is. Surely there is.
Gotta ask our Legends look back buddies.
While we're talking about this, I want to get this out of the way. This was not my first foray into Star Wars, but it was early. So I have my trilogy as well. But these are all, as you can see, the new versions with the Legends banner. Because when I was in my early days of Star Wars reading, I was a Kindler. I used my Kindle, and it makes me sad now because I didn't have physical copies of those books to display on the bookshelf. And I have since gone totally physical copy. Like I have to read things with a book in my hand. I can't do the screens. I don't know what it is, but it makes me sad because there's so many books I could have had without these banners, and now I have to look at their golden glare from across the room.
Yeah. Also, I gotta say, Moonflower said in the chat, and Jacob backed him up. They did do an unabridged audio for Heir to the Empire for the 20th anniversary edition. They put that out with a new cover, new audiobooks. That's what it was.
One,
Yeah. Jacob says they're only doing new audiobooks for ones that didn't have unabridged. So I guess that is
which makes sense.
Which now that I'm thinking about it, Caitlin reread or listened to these in the last couple of years. So I mean, surely she listened to unabridged. So anyway, there's that. I need to add that to my list of things to go back and reread because I've never reread any of the originals. Heir to the Empire or Thrawn series. So,
all right. So Charles, you said that was in your stack. But what was your number one? What was the first one?
I think I've told this story on the podcast before, and I'm gonna flex on y'all real quick by showing you this. This is my hardcover science fiction book club edition of the AC Crispin Han Solo trilogy. So my first book ever was The Paradise Snare by AC Crispin, the first book in this trilogy. And I, like Corey, frequented Barnes and Noble as a young lad, and I can still smell the aroma of the Starbucks coffee as I wandered over to the Star Wars section. And I don't know exactly what it was that drew me to this series, but I picked it up. I chose the Paradise Snare. Probably the giant lion / tiger person on the cover was helpful. And it really set me up. This was a great intro into Star Wars in general. It's the Paradise Snare, the Hutt Gambit, and then Rebel Dawn. So it's a really nice self-contained trilogy that tells a new story, but ends up placing you exactly where you meet Han Solo in A New Hope. So I actually think that
I didn't know that.
It was very fortuitous, and this would be a great choice even today for someone that was interested in getting into Star Wars books. I think I will tell you right now, a lot of people have written Han Solo. I think that AC Crispin does it better than anyone else ever has. That includes even Solo, a Star Wars story like that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's just
I agree.
Pound for pound, incredible. She is incredible. She wrote under a pen name. But yeah, she's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And Jacob says in the chat again, our very own Spice Den keeping us up to date. Our Discord has, because it's an organism of its own, right? It lives, it breathes, created an unofficial book club, and they are starting the Crispin trilogy today. So if you want to head over to our Discord, you can start reading that trilogy. I didn't have that in my stack, but that was also for me one of the first Legends, because I did a lot of canon first, as I'll say in a second. The AC Crispin books are still some of my favorite Star Wars books, period. And I agree, the way she writes Han is really perfect. And if you saw Solo and you're like, oh, I want this time period, I want this vibe, the parallels between that series and that movie and that just time of Han's life is incredible.
Yeah, they borrowed heavily.
Awesome start. Yeah. Do you like that? That was your start. Obviously, like, we're all here, so it all worked. But you said you would still recommend that to someone that, like, you could start with Crispin.
Yeah,
I would. I mean, especially if you're a Han Solo. Yeah, if you're a Han Solo fan, like, it's pretty much a no-brainer.
It doesn't really compete with the films that much either, right? I mean, like,
it doesn't.
Yeah,
a couple like small things here and there, but for the most part,
right? Is how he gets the Falcon in that series?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be a little different, and so would, I guess, his meeting Lando, and some of the stuff that happens in the Solo film would probably be a little different, but it still fits in pretty nicely.
Yeah,
it'd be fun to debate with your friends, right? About
they're more like praying mantises that are also priests that use their like natural hormone vibrations to sedate
they're
you
rhinos,
and make you their slave. But okay.
Yeah, there's definitely drug running. There's you learn a lot about Hutt anatomy, in that you learn all about it. Yeah, awesome first choice. Love that. I'm gonna flip the tables completely now and go to. I had a large gap in my Star Wars reading. I read a little bit when I was a kid, and then I stopped for like 10 years, and then I picked back up. But the first one I did was this one right here. It was The Young Jedi Knights by Kevin J. Anderson. Familiar to a bunch of folks, I bet, from when we were younger. this is the younger readers. Probably it would be middle grade nowadays, I think. These books about Jason and Jaina Solo. So very much like you, Corey, when I picked this up, I got it because of the cover. And I'm like, there's kids on it, and it's Star Wars, and I thought it was Chewbacca. It's not. It's a different Wookiee. But I was like, this is interesting. And I blew through the first 4 books here. And if you're unfamiliar with the Young Jedi Knight series, they're not in print currently. So you have to like go on thrift books or go in like Facebook or eBay and find like these paperbacks. I see them a lot at the half-price bookstores and things like that. And it's all about essentially the Jedi Academy Luke sets up, and you see it through the eyes of the Solo kids and their friends. And if you have like middle school grade kids or something that are like, I want a cool Jedi book, these are still awesome, I think. I really got hooked by them. The writing style was very fun. They're very actionable, and they clipped very fast. And as far as like if I would recommend them being your first book, I don't think so. Only because it kind of sets up a lot that you could go into the Legends bin, but the writing style, I did start to reread them, I think earlier this year just for fun, and like it's a little young. If you're just starting out in all Star Wars, maybe I wouldn't do that. But did any of you 3 guys, did you ever pick up the Young Jedi Knights?
Never did. I've read. I think Charles and I, we've both read. What's that series called? It wasn't Young Jedi Knights. It was the. Man, what is it called? I remember the one with Obi-Wan on the cover and he like is running from Boba Fett, a young teenage Boba Fett. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about.
What's that?
The Jedi Apprentice series?
Jedi Apprentice series. Wasn't it you, Charles, that read some of those? I think it was you, right? Yeah. Yeah. The Jedi Apprentice series. Yeah, Young Jedi Knights is a lot older too, actually. Wasn't it written in the 90s?
Yeah, it was written in the 90s. This collection was in 2003 with the first 3 books.
Okay.
So like
the cover itself.
Oh, that's 3. That's the first 3. I was going to say it looks a little thick for like the middle grade, but
this regular paperback is the first 3 books, and it's like Uncle Luke and stuff. So it's very cute. It's very fun. The 4th book, they build their lightsabers, and that's where the Rancor Tooth lightsaber is originated. So that's super rad. You meet Tenel Ka, who is awesome. But I highly recommend it. But for realsies, I'm going to take 2 here because I have a giant stack. I unfortunately / fortunately picked the correct first book ever. My first real Star Wars book was Lost Stars.
Okay.
I mean, it's the one we recommend.
You win.
But it was my buddy Ian, who I just saw at Disneyland, buddy. I just saw him for the first time in years. He had read this book, and he texted me. He's like, hey, you should read this Star Wars book. And I hadn't read any Star Wars book again since I was in like 5th grade. And this was back when I was... it was like the year I joined UTini, essentially. So it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm like, I hadn't read any books in 10, 15 years. He's like, get this book. I'm like, fine. And it's every cliche that we say it is. It's the perfect intro point. It is beautifully written by Claudia Gray. So I'm not going to take much time to talk about it. I just wanted to say this is where I started my journey. It's why I'm literally here in UTini. When we interviewed Claudia Gray, I told her that straight up. I'm like, you are the reason that I do what I do, that I'm in the community that I'm in. So my chalky, easy gamble pick is that I did start my Star Wars journey with Lost Stars.
You are here,
and I would recommend it.
Oh man, I hate you.
You are here because of Resorb twins, Eric.
I'm here because it's absorbed twins in the womb.
It's utterly phenomenal. I've never heard any real criticism of the book that is worth a shit. Quite frankly, it's so good. I keep a stack of them from the old book box days, and I give them away. I gave one away at my house party over the weekend.
You gotta. It's the perfect one to give to someone. That if you're like having glasses of wine, and they're like, "You like Star Wars books?" and you're like, "Wait!" Like, just give them one.
Yeah, like I've always wanted to, or whatever. Yeah, just pick it up.
Yep.
My buddy that showed me those first books that got me into Star Wars, I recommended Lost Stars to him, and he loved it. He thought it was great.
Perfect.
So he'd never heard of it until I was part of the group.
Is it Darth Lost Stars? I don't understand your recommendation.
Yeah, the SEO on that title could be better.
The Empire is in it. You'll love it.
That's funny.
All right, Corey. So you started with Invincible. Let's take your next. Have a couple. Give us a trajectory.
I would love to hear kind of how y'all's journey was shaped a little bit too, because these were like the early days and stuff. So like I said already, I read primarily. Let me go back to this. I read primarily
Legacy of the Force?
The Legacy of the Force series. series. Sorry, I was on the wrong one. Legacy of the 4 series, and because I started with the last one, all the other ones were available, so I picked them all up. A couple in hardcover, a couple in paperback, and then I was like super into, because the complexity and everything of like the post Rot J timeline. I was like really into like older Luke and the Solo kids, and although I wasn't crazy about like little kid Solo kids, right? I didn't really want the young Jedi Knight stuff.
Sure.
I wanted I wanted the older, more mature story, I think. And the next thing that I did, and this was really what shaped my journey a great deal, is I read this series, the Fate of the Jedi series. Which,
I love those covers so much.
They are. This is probably what I would call like the final modern Legends series, I think, in Star Wars Legends, right? Because these series, I mean, it came out, let me see, let me pick the first one. I think Vortex was the first one. This came out in 2010, right? So I had been, the Invincible came out in 2008. This book came out in 2010. And I followed these books as they were released, which is weird and unique. And
it's what we do now, but
that's what we do now.
Back then it was much different.
It was hard. I mean, we didn't really. I'm from like the boonies. I didn't have home internet, dude, until
how
like
did you
2011.
know?
Like seriously,
you know the dates they were coming out.
A man came to your house and said, "There's a new Star Wars book, son," and then he left.
I had figured out the timeline thing in the beginning of the paperback of the old Legends books. Do you guys have that? Does anybody have that in front of them? They can pull it up. I wonder if it's in this.
The old timeline.
The old timeline. I'm sure it's in the.
It's not in my Heir to the Empire book. It's not in this one
right here.
It's not?
All right. I'm not going to show you what book this is because this is the next one I'm going to talk about. But look at this first. You get the galaxy,
hold up,
like the universe map, really.
I love those.
Regions. And then the next page, I think, is what you want, Corey. Which is
that's the old time. I've not even seen that one.
That's old.
That's not the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I have.
Well,
this is a good one though.
My next book isn't a canon book. That's all I'll say.
There you go, Wes. Let me see
this
yours.
guy right here.
Yeah, that guy right there. The old timeline, right? And I think they had. I think they used to put like the coming soon books either like in there or. And then
that's rad.
This was also the age where like the last 2 chapters of every book would be like 1 or 2 chapters of the next book that was coming out, right? And so I think towards the end of some of the older books I was reading, like it was previewing to this new series that was coming out, and it was a continuation, right? This is after Darth Caedus. This is after the Solo kids did their stuff in Legends, like, and it was sort of a continuation of that, of older Ben Skywalker, Luke's son, dealing with the fact that his mom's not around anymore, dealing with some of this dramatic stuff that happens in the Legacy series, right? So, and I loved that, right? So, like in my mind at the time, it was like Legacy of the Force series, Fate of the Jedi series. Like this is like the main line, right? This is like continuation of the original trilogy, is how it was to me. And I followed those books as it came out, and I had lots of little sporadic reading kind of in the middle there, like Darth Plagueis and things like that, kind of throughout. But like when it always came back to me, like it was like I was waiting for the next saga film to come out. It's kind of how I viewed those books and stuff, and they're not even that amazing. That's what's funny about it is like,
but it was an event.
The Fate of the Jedi series is not a phenomenal series, like by any means. I mean, you saw the first book has got a 7.8 on our site, right? So, but I loved it, and that like totally shaped my reading, and it taught me how to navigate the universe, right? Because I was having to use the timeline. I was having to figure out who the authors were. You know, they had several of the same authors that did these entire series, like Troy Denning and Karen Travis and that sort of thing, right? So,
well, it's kind of like the precursor to like a High Republic type thing. It's like, following a book on a series with a bunch of different authors is a very special kind of thing. And it's so interesting that so many people nowadays will come to Star Wars and they'll start with a bunch of individual books and bounce around, which I know I think a lot of us will talk about here in a bit. But you literally started with giant sagas because you're like, Star Wars is an epic saga.
Yeah, and I read those kind of as they were coming out, and I remember we had this tiny little bookstore in one of our local cities, and I would call him and be like, "Hey, I think this new book is coming out. Do you see anything like that?" And he would be like, "Yeah," and I'd be like, "Hold me one," and he would do that for me.
Hey, Joyce, it's that kid again.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It was like calling.
It's like, yeah, thanks. You're my favorite customer. Yeah, exactly. That's not true, but you know, but in the middle of all, I mean, these books were released over the course of like 2 years, I believe. And I was trying to fill the gaps of all my Star Wars knowledge at the time. So I also read the Han Solo trilogy. In fact, I might actually have my original books of those behind me too. Yeah. But I read the Han Solo trilogy. I was like, I mean, the cool thing about Star Wars is like, it's like the series that never ends. I think that's what's so that's what's so fantastic about it. And I'm such a sucker for series, right? And the Legacy of the Force like really sucked me into like these continual stories with multiple books. Like I didn't want to read standalone books, so the vast majority of my early reading were in series. So I read like the Han Solo trilogy, the Empire series. The Republic Commando series that was also released very early. That was some of my early stuff too. So, and all that was kind of in the middle of the Fate of the Jedi and stuff. So
you're following one giant series and doing a bunch of small series as they're happening. Now, would you? So, because today, obviously, the modern canon, there are some series like we had like Alpha Squadron trilogy, Aftermath trilogy, Queen Shadow, like all that stuff. Would you recommend people to grasp onto series and do stuff, or so I mean, it worked for you. Do you think that's still a good approach?
I think it's a fantastic approach. Like if we had more series, but we really don't. We don't have that many series. We have a handful now in canon finally, but like up until last year, we really didn't. Right? We had we had Thrawn, and then Thrawn Allegiant Alliances, and then Thrawn Treason, right? And those
and Aftermath
loosely together, and then Aftermath. But now we have Alphabet Squadron. We have
Ascendancy?
The Ascendancy trilogy.
And then High Republic is basically now
one giant series, right? So, I mean, I think if that it's available, then it's not a bad way to do it. If you're mixing up, all right, let me rephrase that. If you're going to read Legends and canon at the same time, which we all recommend that you do, right?
Yep.
If you're going to read Legends and canon at the same time, I don't think that's a bad way to go. Is if you pick some of the series like Heir to the Empire, the Han Solo trilogy, the Republic Commando series, like some of that old stuff, like mixed in with, you know, you pick up Lost Stars and Master and Apprentice and all those other things kind of mixed in there. I think that is certainly a perfectly acceptable way to read. And you know, we have our recommended, you know, Utini Foundational 5 on our website, and we also have like the Utini reading order on our website. But like, I mean, read the Foundational 5 and then do whatever you want is kind of what we say. Like, and so if I were to start over, that's probably what I would do, is some mix of series and new canon individual stuff.
All right.
So it sounds like in Legends there was a lot more series of books longer than a trilogy, and then canon has had quite a few trilogies, but nothing longer than 3, right?
Yeah.
Until the High Republic.
Until the High Republic
is the first.
Well,
that's interesting.
It was somewhat of a not successful formula, I think, in Legends.
Yeah,
the problem
for sales wise, because if you didn't like it, then that's all you had for a couple of years.
Yes, the Fate of the Jedi famously did not sell amazingly well. A couple of the books were on the New York Times bestseller list and stayed there for a little while, but like I don't think as a series as a whole it performed very well. And then you have the insanity of series like the New Jedi Order, which is 19 books, and like even now, with as well-read as I am, I still don't want to commit to 19 books, even after all this time. So I think it's a bad idea. I wish we had a 5-book series in Star Wars canon. Like, I kind of wish the Ascendancy books were going to be a 5-book series instead of 3. But, you know.
Oh, nope, can't talk about it. Wes! I'm reading it.
Good job, Wes.
Wes, Corey did all these series. You started with Heir of the Empire. You got your Thrawn trilogy in. Did you continue series, or then did you break off?
I did continue a series. I continued because of a friend of mine. I continued with this guy.
Darth Bane.
I think Wes is rivaling Eric for best starts.
Yeah,
in the Star Wars.
This is a great start.
Hella
wow,
good, dude.
No wonder you love this stuff.
I picked up. I read Darth Bane as a lended book, so I borrowed it from a friend, and I borrowed the paperbacks, and I read those pretty quickly. It took me longer to read Heir to the Empire and in the Thrawn trilogy, just because it was my first dip into Star Wars, because there was a bunch of new characters and I wasn't really familiar with a lot of them outside of Luke Skywalker. But with Darth Bane, it's an amazingly quick read. because
It
it's so
rich.
so greatly written. And Drew Karpyshyn is, I mean, all three of his books were great. I mean, the covers aren't great. That's why maybe they came out with a new Legends.
The new ones are.
Oh my god!
The Legends are good.
Friggin' best books with the worst covers in Star Wars books. I still, to this day, say that Rule of Two. Here, I have it actually pulled up. Rule of Two is the worst cover of any book that's like better than like a 7. Like absolutely.
Yeah.
Such a
It's
bad
so
cover.
good.
It looks like concept art for a movie on Sci-Fi Channel
It's
from
so bad.
Yes. Oh my God, it totally does.
So bad. So bad.
But the inside's so
Yeah.
good. But you stuck with it though. You saw that cover and you're like, "Yep, I'm gonna read it."
Of course. I
It was
wasn't
awesome.
gonna stop, but yeah, the Darth Bane trilogy, I mean, couldn't go wrong there either. I didn't actually look up this one on the internet to find out the best trilogy to read, but this was more recommended to me, and it was a damn good recommendation. So I stand by it. This is probably one of the best ones that I've read so far.
I really do think that the
killing it.
Darth Bane trilogy rivals the Heir to the Empire trilogy for being
Oh, I like it better.
the
I'll say
best
it.
trilogy of any Star Wars
I like
book.
it better too.
Super
I
good.
love it.
Yeah.
Bane is so freaking good. I mean, I just listened to the audiobook again last year, and Dynasty Evil is an absolute utter masterpiece. It really, really is.
Yep.
Like, it's creation of the Sith, and if
For
you're
sure.
into like
traveling to different worlds.
yes, if you're into like Sith lore and what a Sith Academy would have looked like, and oh my
Yeah.
god, it's so freaking good. I love it still.
All right,
Make
so
me want
Wes-
to read it again. Damn it.
Yeah, Wes is old. No wonder Wes is here. All right, absolutely killing it. Corey was in reading these 18 quadrillion book series. Charles, you got your Crispin in. You find out who Han Solo was. Then where'd you go?
When was that, by
I
the way,
think-
Charles? When did you read the Crispin trilogy?
That's a really good question. I don't even know if I could commit to like a year. I mean, I was probably in middle school, probably around then. I don't know the exact year, but yeah. I remember I used to go to the book section. I would look at these Star Wars books every time I was there, and I never got one until that one day that I decided to pick one up and actually take it home. After that, I think is when I probably, well, I think where I went next was the one that I showed inside earlier. And Corey's going to laugh at this, but it was Vector Prime.
Vector
It was
Prime.
the first book
Dude.
in the new Jedi Order series.
That's another
This
another
is-
terrible cover. Look at that thing.
It's a very bad cover. It's
very Star
here's-
Trek-y.
I can
Look
hold
at
it
it.
up there.
Oh my god, what
Yeah.
the hell is that? It's like a bug shit on the cover.
Yeah, it
What-
makes
what
the
the heck?
Yuuzhan Vong look, like a cockroach. But yeah, so I went to these books. I did some form of research that kind of let me know that this was a huge series, and that's why I picked it up. And I have probably a pretty destructive personality trait in that I will go so hardcore into something. I will go so hardcore, and then I will just burn out. But I remember that I read Vector Prime, and it was just really fun and new and different. And I was like, what happens in this book made me very upset as well, but I won't talk about that. I went on to the next book and the next book and the next book and the next book. And I think I had read like 9 of them within like, I don't know, 10 months or something like that. And then I just stopped. I've never finished this series to this day. I've never done it.
Listen, I've never read more than the,
There's
than
gonna
the
be
first
spoilers
than
for
the
you.
first friggin' book, dude. Like, I'm kind of with you.
Yeah.
You know, I
No,
think,
but
I think, listen, that book
I
is
made
like
it too.
20, that book is like 20, 25 years old. I think we can talk about the spoiler shit that happened.
How
because
many-
it was,
yeah. So
it was,
how many books are in
it
the
was
series
really
first?
controversial at the time. There's 19.
It's
was
like
huge.
19 actual
19.
full-length books, but there's also like some novellas and stuff,
no,
and it's 20
I think
plus.
it's, I know, is that true? Or is it,
It's
or is
it's 12
19
plus
including the
if you
novellas?
count everything.
I do own them because as a good Star Wars fan, I haven't read them. I do own all of them.
But they're on your
They look cool. That's a hard one, man.
That's
Like,
that's my controversial opinion is like, because all the Legacy of the Force stuff and all the Fate of the Jedi stuff, it all heavily references the Yuuzhan Vong War, right? Because there's some major stuff that affects the grand story. Like there were originally 3 Solo kids. There's Anakin, Jason, and Jaina, and Anakin is famously killed in in the series in the Yuuzhan Vong War, so like it's like a big deal, and it's reference. Yeah, exactly. It's so confusing, dude. So all you can imagine
he's almost killed in this book.
Yes,
but
I know.
He's saved by Chewie, who then dies.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Which
hit
was
by a
which
moon.
He gets hit by a moon, which was a hugely controversial decision to do at the time. So. I really didn't like the Yuuzhan Vong War, and Trevor and I talked about that on the Star Wars Archives episode a good deal because he loves this shit, dude.
He
and I was like,
it.
I hate it.
Legacy.
I hated it. I've always hated it. I have a bitter taste in my mouth about it.
But I think there's this element too of. I think there's like a principle for this. Like the more time that you put into something, the more like you're unwilling to let go of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like. If you're that many, I guess I don't have a problem with this, but if you're that many books into a series, like you've spent so much time on it, like you have to keep going. Like it has to be good. All these things.
Yeah, that's interesting that you stopped.
Yeah, I will say
I have a problem. Okay.
No, I'm with you, Charles. I think that there was an interesting author thread on Twitter about this a couple weeks back, where I don't think anyone should ever be shamed for not finishing a book. If you're reading a book and you don't like it, go to a different book. It's totally fine. I think, especially with Star Wars, there's so many different kinds of books that I think that trying to read correctly, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do this show, trying to read correctly has, I think, stopped a lot of people from finding a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, we have stuck by that since the beginning with creating the Youtini reading order. In fact, we were really against doing a this is the order you read Star Wars books in forever. Like, I mean, we existed for probably 2.5 years, 3 years before we decided to create an order. And still, we built our reading order in this sort of like weird gray area way where it's like we have
like
4 giant categories of books, right? Kind of based on kind of pick from this category, kind of pick from this category. And these are finally the ones you can maybe skip, right? But yeah, I don't know. Yuuzhan Vong, man. It's a lot.
It's tough.
Well,
it's tough. I think the thing about this series is that when you get a series this long, the issue is
we're
that
like Yuuzhan Long, am I right?
Yeah. You lose the momentum of the main storyline. So like you start branching out into these side plots, and then you literally spend trilogies within the book series resolving this side plot thing, waiting to kind of get back to the overarching thing. So it's just, there is such a thing as a series being too long, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I agree.
Too. The limit is somewhere between 9 and 19, huh, Charles? Yeah,
it's somewhere in there.
I still can't believe that it even exists. Like, who ever thought that 19 books was a good idea?
They burned it down.
Is crazy.
Yeah,
well,
that's just nuts.
Somebody was making money somewhere.
So y'all did trilogies, series, all these things. So my next thing, I did something completely different. I did a continuation from Lost Stars in a way, but I didn't, obviously, because I started canon. I didn't read Legends for quite a bit in my reading order, because the next 2 books I read were kind of a trilogy in that it was just 3 Claudia Gray books. I read Bloodline, and then I read Leia, Princess of Alderaan.
Nice.
After I read Lost Stars, because I'm like,
I love
this
Gray
author,
trilogy.
Claudia Gray. The Claudia Gray trilogy. I was like, listen, I love the way she writes Star Wars books. Oh, she's written 2 other ones. Oh, they're both about Leia? Amazing. And I read Bloodline first, and then I read Princess of Alderaan. And I thought they were just tremendous.
The Bloodline cover is sick.
Yeah, this thing.
The hardback? Yeah.
Yeah. It was
is a great cover.
Yeah.
No,
because Leia obviously came out later.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of my weirdly controversial opinions. Is I actually didn't love Bloodline the first time I read it, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get into. It's very political. When did you?
Yeah.
How many books had you read when you joined Youtini? Like at that time?
Oh, like less than 10.
Yeah, okay, it was less than 10, but this was before that, though, right?
This was before Youtini still. I think I hit Youtini, so I did Bloodline. Again, I was picking around, and then I actually had the cutoff, I think, because I read Phasma, then hilariously, because, and this is, I didn't get it in the Youtini book box test. I loved The Force Awakens so much. I've said it on the show, I saw it 8 times in theaters. And then when Last Jedi was coming out, I was like all about it. I was all about Last Jedi. So when they did this book, I'm like, ooh, I love Phasma as a character. But I still remember reading this book in I was substitute teacher at the time. I was teaching a science class for the day. It was an AP chemistry class near the end of the year, so the kids weren't really doing anything. So I just sat and read this almost entire book in a day.
Wow.
And got
it was
paid.
and it was awesome. Like it was, again, all the books I started with. I love hearing you guys talk about these series and trilogies because every single one I had nothing to do with any of the other ones plot wise. I was just bouncing. And then when I joined Utini, I bounced again and I read these two books because I was like, I'm going to write articles for Utini, but I have to like read and do research and like make them like really cool. So I read Catalyst, the Rogue One novel. And Corey, I don't think you mentioned Luceno to me. That's not why I got this. I think I just dug Rogue One. And I was like, that sounds like a cool book. And I remember I like wrote notes in the margins and stuff about the article I was going to write. And then I finally dived in and I read Thrawn.
Nice. I love the Barnes & Noble edition
earlier
of Thrawn with the black cover. I love it.
I had the paperback because I got it in the Utini book box. I got the Canon Thrawn and stuff. Our buddy Timothy Guthrie actually picked this up for me I think in Tennessee somewhere he found it. But these two books were very interesting because this is when I started to get into like these more like not serious but like more hardcore books, I guess. You know, like the more like sci-fi versus fantasy of it. Like the Thrawn and Catalyst are a lot more technical and things like that.
That's true.
And I think I'm one of the few people that actually read Thrawn before I read Heir to the Empire because I was like, I want to know the canon version. So every time I look at these books now, like those first 5 or 6 I've gone through, I'm kind of amazed I kept track of what was going on at all.
Yeah.
Because none of these have anything to do with each other. They're all in different places in the timeline.
That's true.
Like they're all canon, but that's about it. And I just kept loving them because I jumped to authors more so than I jumped to series. And like
none of the
So
early
remind me again. Good.
I was gonna say none of the early canon books took a lot of risk either, right? So
no,
like
it was a very simple. Here's the Leia book. Here's the
it's
Phasma
like,
book.
exactly.
Here's the Thrawn book.
It's
Like
there's a
very
beginning and an
character-based.
end, and it doesn't mess with anything at all. I mean, that's kind of how it was, right? There's still really rich stories, but they just didn't have no major characters are getting killed off, right?
No,
Chewie's
'cause
not
they were
getting
still
ran over
making-
by a moon in the freaking book, right? I mean,
because they're making the movies. Like the movies were still
exactly.
a test. Like because I think I just started reading Star Wars books in like 2016.
Yeah.
So like the Force Awakens was a huge hit, but they were like maybe Last Jedi, and then Rogue One was a huge risk, and they're like we're still really soft about what we're able to do, and now they're like, all right, whole new eras, why not? But Wes, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just saying, remind me again. The timeline of Catalyst, is that before Rogue One?
It is before Rogue One. It's basically the story of Krennic and Galen.
Okay.
It is my favorite Luceno book. I will say. I think it's the most accessible.
Oh
I think it's the most accessible Luceno.
so listen, you gotta go listen to the Darth Plagueis novelization in the audiobook. You gotta listen to the audiobook.
We heard you already.
Well, because you know what? Here, I'll actually. I got 2 more in my stack. I'm just gonna finish up here with mine. Since you mentioned that, because I finally went to Legends after reading all these things, and I did read Kenobi. I did do Paradise Snare in here, but Kenobi was like my first real big. Oh my God, this is the
Go ahead
perfect
and
book, and it
flex that hardcover hundreds of
flex that
dollars Kenobi
hardcover.
you have right now. It's like it's pretty hard to get.
It's hard to find. I did all these I read in paperback, by the way. I'm showing those hardcovers. This is all when I got like a real adult job and started to collect these things because why not? I'm a childless millennial. But Kenobi was the first one where I'm like, oh, this is I think a perfect one and done. Legends, I get it now because I was a little resistant to going into Legends. I didn't have the Utini people to tell me it's
think a lot of
fine. You
people
can do
are.
both.
A lot of people are when they pick up canon and they really want to know about the difference between canon and Legends and before committing to, which I get, I understand.
Yeah,
I mean,
I completely understand it.
Yeah.
I completely understand it. But Kenobi is the perfect bridge, I think. And then I read the book that took me the longest it's ever taken me to read a book in my entire life, which was Darth Plagueis, which again I'll flex that hardcover, which I also paid $24.
Flex.
But I remember this is when I was in Seattle for the summer.
Too, I want to say.
Oh, I got very lucky on finding this. I read the paperback though, because I told Corey I would. 'Cause she told me it was your favorite. And I was reading it, and I was like, bruh, struggling.
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
It's a hard early Legends one.
It is a hard early Legends. I think I would
love it. I think I would go back and love it.
I think this is one of those books that has to be done in audiobook form. Like, dude, I'm telling you, this I don't remember it nearly as fondly as my recent experience listening to the audiobook was. I mean,
of course, because you listened to it recently.
I know.
Read it years ago.
Yeah, but like, I mean, when I told Eric about it, I was like, yeah, Dark Plagueis is really, really good. I don't think I must have said that like this is the greatest freaking experience ever. No, and that's how I freaking feel about the audiobook right now. I mean, it's like
you do.
Phenomenal. It's so freaking good.
Yeah. I will say.
Go ahead.
I was getting real quick on Plagueis. One of the other reasons I brought it too is that at that time, that was before we had put out a lot of our resources about what you should start with. It was when I was just starting to write the Utini guide to canon, like all these things.
Yeah.
And Plagueis was on a lot of internet lists of the top 10 books you should read first. And I got to say, in this episode, the reason that for this episode for me is saying don't do that. Yeah, Plagueis is a great book. First. It should not be in the first 10 you read.
I agree. I think it could maybe be in the first 10, but it definitely shouldn't be like in the first 5.
Depending on your style.
First 3.
For my style.
I mean, Luceno is such a heavy author. I think you hit number 7 for Wes. Yeah. It was early on in mine too, as well. Charles, when did you read Plagueis?
It was pretty early.
Yeah, I think it was early too.
It was probably first 10 to 15, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was pretty early, and I think that's maybe appropriate. I don't think it's a bad first Luceno book. I think it's funny that you remember Catalyst so fondly. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I almost said funly. Yeah, I think it's funny you remember Catalyst so fondly. Yeah, because I think Catalyst. I think Catalyst and Tarkin are probably Luceno's densest, hardest to read books, and it's funny that
I did not finish Tarkin.
Yeah. I think it's funny you love Catalyst as much as you did. I don't recommend you read those early on. Plagueis, man, so many people put that as the first book you should read, and everybody might feel that way after they've read 10 books. But like, you can't feel like that. You can't start with. It's just too heavy and dense. And Luceno is, he's a heavy author. My favorite. Luceno is my favorite author. I can
Nothing
say.
Nothing wrong with that.
But
it's
still
like, hey, are you a freshman in college? Have a shot of whiskey for your first drink. Like, no, have a Coors Light. Like, fucking ease into it.
Yeah,
you don't need to like. Here's some Pappy Van Winkle. No, you're gonna die.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it. So, let's go. So, Wes, what else you got? How did you kind of round out your introduction?
I have some too that I want to talk about as kind of like early books, honorable mentions. But after Wes, you go.
I like honorable mentions. Yeah.
So we talked about. So 7th was my 7th book. So after my 2 trilogies was Darth Plagueis. We'll pass on that. I'll start in canon just because I was incredibly excited. This is the first book that I pre-ordered because
that's a cool feeling.
I saw it coming out. Feeling. Right. So I guess one of my first books that I read is Star Wars from a certain point of view.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about this. I've heard you talk about this before.
Yeah.
I lobbied real hard to get this bumped up into the ranking system like a couple years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah. Anyways, but so the thing that I love about this book is that if you're just getting into Star Wars and you've seen the movies and you've seen all the movies, but you haven't read any of the books, this kind of lets you dip your toe into the expanded universe, but also knowing like the events that are going on in the background.
That's
right?
true.
So
you're
just like you start off with like the beginning, like when you're on the ship, and then you have the commander of the Tantus. And he was like, he's getting choked by Vader.
Antilles.
Like somebody, he's talking. He's like, he gives his feelings about what's going on at the moment. You're like, wow, I never even knew that. And then like the little red droid, and then we get in the beginning of the movie when he almost got sold to Luke and
the red one
to his uncle, the red one. Yeah, it's like one of the best stories I've ever read. And I was like, I had no idea about. I think probably like I don't know, a day after that, I went to the bar with a bunch of friends and I was telling them about this book. And I was like, it tells you all about that little red droid, about why it blew up. It wasn't just an accident. And he was like, what? He's like, is that canon? And I didn't know what the hell canon was when he asked me that. And I was like, yeah, sure it is.
Like, yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, it's canon. But it kind of guides you along because you already know A New Hope. You've seen the movie. And then it gives you those little those little side streets of what's happening with these characters that you already know about, but you don't know these little stories, and it keeps like progressing and progressing. And I thought that was amazing because I've never read any book like that before that ties into the movie so well.
Yeah, that's a cool starting
kinda
point
one of
too.
my
Because
first ones.
the short story element also I think works very well for people that like I think a lot of us before you find Star Wars books, if you haven't been a social reader for a while, a short story is a lot less intimidating. Like
Absolutely.
read one before bed, read one on the toilet, like do whatever you want to do,
Big fan
and then
of
if you don't
toilet
like
rights.
one, oh well, the next one's gonna be different. Yeah. That's a good choice I think for a first book too. I really like that.
Yeah, I was gonna, as far as canon goes, I kind of pretty much followed all the new release canon books as they came out. Like, I either purchased them and didn't read them immediately, or at least was well aware that they existed and sort of chose to skip some of them. I don't think I bought like a hard copy of Bloodline for a while when it was released, but. And I totally skipped out on Lost Stars too. I was like, what is this weird independent book? Like that's because it was one of the first ones published, remember? So like, and I was like, whatever.
Whoa. Sorry, real quick. Just a great chat. Speaking of that, Joseph Jones just said, I've only read Lost Stars and Kenobi so far.
Very good.
Wow.
We're witnessing your start of your journey.
I know, it's fantastic.
That's so cool. What great choices. Oh, cool. Sorry, that threw me because I'm like this reminiscing is great, but it's like, oh my god, it's happening right in front of us.
Yeah, thanks
Those
for
are
checking out the
brilliant.
site too.
Thanks for checking them out, man.
Yeah, people always jump in with Discord and stuff, and have talked about, I just got Lost Stars. I loved it. Like I love
the best
hearing
feeling.
it. Yeah, it's good. All right, so I have
We love to see it.
I have a couple honorable mentions that I read very early in my Star Wars journey that like I've talked about a little bit in the past, but not a ton. The first one is a little more well known, is the Republic Commando series.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't think there's not very many people at all on the team who have read this series, and I don't think any of you guys have, right?
I have not. I read part of the first one.
Hard Contact, is that the first one, right?
Yeah, that is the first one. So Hard Contact was released in 2004, which this is before the Clone Wars TV show came out, right? Didn't the Clone Wars TV come out in 2005? I think, maybe.
Was it?
No,
It was the lead up. It was the
2002?
lead up to Revenge of the
Yeah,
That was the
Revenge of
Tartakovsky.
the Sith.
yeah. Tartakovsky was
That's what I'm
03,
talking
04,
about.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
Sorry,
before,
we're talking
Yeah,
about
so-
the other.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
The Lucas, I guess the Lucas Clone Wars. I guess what we should call it. I don't know. The Filoni Clone Wars is what we should call it. Yeah. Yeah. So this is before that, and it's like really heavy and like there's a lot of heavy war themes. There's some controversy in it, I think, that I don't really know all the details about involving Karen Travis, and I think they sort of pulled a contract out from under her at the end. So it does kind of feel like an unfinished series, but also does kind of conclude in and of itself. And the first 4 books are all like Clone Wars, crazy action stuff with Clone Wars and Jedi, and then Order 66 happens in it, and like some these clones are like kind of independent, right? Because they're commandos, so they don't quite have the inhibitor chip stuff, and which wasn't a thing anyway in Legends at the time. But they like escape with some Jedi, which is pretty crazy. And then there's like post Order 66 is the final book, which is kind of, some of them join the Empire, some of them stay with the clones, and it's a really rich, kind of heavy series that's really good that I read very early on that I also really loved. And I think I followed it. I don't think I followed it with its release, but I bought the last one when it came out, like the day it came out. I remember that.
Yeah, and Karen Travis, one of those people, as Endar says in the chat, she writes very much that militaristic style, and she went on to write Halo and Gears of War books.
That's true.
So if that's the kind of style that you want. Also, if you ever want Mandalorian lore to pop up in literally every single book you ever read, Karen Travis is the place to go. She is always
Travis
putting
pretty
Mandalorian
much
stuff.
invented early Mandalorian lore. Like,
Mandalore.
basically everything we
Yes.
know about Mandalorian stuff, like the language and everything, was all Karen Travis. And
Yep.
I mean, she's like a brainiac and a genius, and it makes for it does make for heavy reading though. There's a lot of like translation stuff, which is weird. Like, but that's cool. And then the last honorable mention I have here is the Coruscant Nights trilogy. I read this book.
Oh, wow.
I read these books back in the day too. There's 4 books in this series. Funny enough, one of them is called The Last Jedi. The final book is called The Last Jedi.
Yeah, it
and it's
is.
like,
Oh wow.
yeah, it's the Legends version of The Last Jedi, which is funny. And it is loosely connected to the other 3, but they're okay. I mean, we don't rate them super high, but it does kind of have that sort of has a sort of buddy cop detective sort of feel to it. I mean, he's like a Jedi private eye, I think. Or what is he? Oh, it's after Order 66. That's right. And he's like he like survived the purge and is like working as a detective, I think. And he has like a protocol droid is like his partner, and it's a fun series. And I remember looking forward to the next book in that series when it came out as well.
This is a hardcover collection I am still looking for. If anyone has, very hard to find.
Yeah, they're really
so if anyone has a lead,
the Last Jedi is not that rare. Do you have that one?
Not any hardcovers, man.
I think the Last Jedi is a little more attainable nowadays.
I remember shortly after joining UTini, I was in our Slack and I was like, "Did you guys know there's a Legends Last Jedi?" And Corey was like, "Yeah, that was like in our book box last month, like before you won." And I was like, "Oh, cool, yeah, no doubt."
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, no doubt.
Excellent choices.
Oh,
Charles, what do you got, man? Well, how'd you round out your intro?
Well, I think one of the next series that I went to was, I know, the Bane trilogy. I know I did read some random one-off, like Clone Wars related books, like some of those ones. Like it wasn't Cestus Deception, but those kind of books that are one-offs that are related to the prequels. I know I read those. How I want to use this time is actually thinking about what did I read when I got back or when I started with the UTini team, because I had a similar thing where like I was really into these books. I guess I got into it in middle school and read them all through high school, and then kind of fell off in the college years, but I was still super into podcasts and stuff like that. And then I kind of found my way back when I joined UTini, and I think that would have been around the time that the Last Jedi novelization came out. Like I think that's when that would have been. And I think it's worth talking about that, right? About novelizations and reading those, because it seems almost like a very obvious place to start, to read the book version of the movies that you already know you love. And I think you could steer very wrong that way. Potentially. Yeah. I do know that I picked up the novelization for A New Hope relatively early in my journey, and I stopped reading it. I put it down. I was not really feeling it.
It doesn't age well. All the original books
it doesn't age well, and it was written so early on that there are little weird inconsistencies that are still there that kind of just can potentially take you out of it. And that's nitpicky, but I think it's worth saying, that the novelizations are kind of a beast of their own.
Isn't Yoda blue in one of them?
Yoda is blue in Empire. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's actually worth exploring the other things and then going back to maybe some novelizations, unless you're doing like Solo or one of the newer ones that have aged better or that are more palatable, I think, on your first pass.
I mean, let's be honest. Revenge of the Sith, we've all talked about this a million times. Probably the best Star Wars book ever written.
I've never talked about this ever.
Shut up, Wes. Yeah.
Wes, read the book.
Revenge of the Sith novelization, probably the best Star Wars that's ever been written. It's so good. And Tross, read that novelization. Quite frankly, the rest of them, I think you could skip for a good part of your...
I love Solo.
Phantom Menace.
Really?
Oh, yeah, Solo actually as well. Solo might be...
I still haven't read Phantom Menace. This is one of them actually I haven't.
Solo's incredible.
Yeah, Solo was good too.
Yeah, but still, the original trilogy, I agree.
Even then, none of them are even kind of on the same level as Revenge of the Sith, though. I mean, they're good, but they're not like.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Tross helps if you're a person like we did in our roundtable. If you're a person that didn't care too much about Episode 9, Tross really helps that. If that's the boat you're in and you want to like the movie more, 100% recommend doing that. But yeah, if you already like the movies and you're like, watch the deleted scenes, and then I mean, if you have nothing else to read, which I envy you, what a great position to be in. We love these, but there's a lot. Then yeah, if you want some comfort food, it doesn't hurt. But that's a great point, Charles. If you're starting out and you're like, I'll do something familiar, I'll do a novelization. There was someone on Twitter actually responded to us today that said they read the Star Wars novelization back in the 70s. as the first thing, and I'm like, if that's all there was,
The Adventures of
Sure.
Luke Skywalker.
yeah.
Nice.
But nowadays, there are much better starting points. That's a great point.
What about High
Mine's full
Republic
of mold.
nowadays? Starting at the High Republic. That's an interesting
I
idea.
think starting Light of the Jedi is great. I honestly do. I don't think you need to know nothing about. If you've seen the movies, you can understand High Republic.
Yeah.
I think you need to know nothing about the eras, and I think there's, on the whole,
Something to be said for that for sure, right?
yeah. I think Light of the Jedi is at this moment in time my favorite Star Wars book, and I think it's one of the best written books ever.
Yeah, it is
So,
very, very good. It was the highest rated.
if
It
you
is
wanna
the
get
highest
hooked-
rated canon book we've ever reviewed. So
Yeah.
you can't take
So
that for granted.
I think that's an as we end the initiative in the next couple of years, looking back on it as a whole, I wonder if we're gonna be like, oh, it's like a 19-book series. But if you just go to the adult novels, there's probably only gonna be like 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and if they're all at the caliber of Light of the Jedi and
know.
Rising Storm, I will absolutely say read
Yeah.
that.
2022 might be finally the year that we need to take another look at the Utini Foundational 5 for the first time. We haven't changed
Yeah.
it. We have debated it, but we haven't changed it since we
In
created
a couple
it.
years.
And it's been that way for about 3 years. And I don't know, man. I
Sounds like content.
I almost would consider swapping out Light of the Jedi for Heir of the Empire, which is crazy.
I would too,
So,
actually,
I
with
think
all the
that's-
Thrawn stuff.
I know. I think there's something to be said for that. So
Here's what I'll say. If you're watching this, because we've had a lot of people say they read the Foundational 5, and we love that. If you're listening to this and you've read the Foundational 5, hit us up in Discord in the Living Force channel or comment on this video. Tell us if you had to replace a book in the Foundational 5 for an early reader. So as we did in this show, if you had to replace one, what would you do and why? Because we might do it. I think it's actually a great idea. Corey, you
That
always
is a
talk
great
about
idea.
how we should always revisit. We should always try to get better at what we're doing.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
if our Foundational 5 could be better for new readers, I think we owe it to y'all to do that. So yeah, we'd love your input from our audience. I mean, you guys are reading it just like we are. So wow, that
Also
threw me
maybe-
a little. Now I'm thinking about
also
it.
can
Now
we
I'm
replace
like,
Kenobi? But all right, moving on. Let's go.
Whoa.
Jared's
Yeah,
going to
I know.
stab us.
I know. I'm gonna get shot. This is gonna be. It will 100% be one of the most heated debates we have on our team if we do replace
I think so.
anything.
I think it should be recorded
Yeah.
in live video.
Dream.
we have to get a brief overview of Robert's Rules of Order before we have the conversation.
We'll have weighted voting too.
Oh man.
Well, I love and Chris. Speaking of, I mean, books. It's so funny as we're rounding up here. We have all these books that started us that are kind of classic Star Wars, and next week we're going to be doing a roundtable on possibly the most unlike any of these books that exist with Ronin. So if you've enjoyed this episode, first of all, thank you for all of these episodes. We thank you that you enjoy them. Make sure if you watched it, if you liked us so far, hit that like button, give us a review, subscribe to all the things. But come back next week because we are talking Ronin. We're doing full spoilers. We're going to talk about the book that has been a subject of a lot of conversation in this community, and we can't wait to get into it. Our two-part roundtables are one of our favorite things that we do. So next week, Charles has some questions ready. Charles, how are you feeling about your prep for Ronin next week, man? What's your
Well,
gut telling you?
I want to just clarify something you just said, that I have some questions ready. I don't have questions ready. I started the prompts today. It took me quite a long time to finish this book, which I think we talked about a few episodes ago, like not to wait with this book if you want to join us live for those roundtables. But I do think that when I get those questions down, we're going to have a lot of really good discussion. I think there's going to be some strong opinions, and I'm really interested to hear everyone's thoughts, really, even everyone in Discord, because I'm still not 100% sure what happened in this book.
Well, if there's a better tease, I don't know about it. But what is better is something I just saw in our Slack, is that our very own JG Cars, who's watching the show right now, just joined our Jedi High Council on Patreon.
Oh, hey.
Nice.
Oh, yo! Thank you.
How about you, JG?
What a way to end it. All right, y'all, beautiful. We'll do it live. All right. Next week, Ronin. We hope that all of you enjoyed the show, and we hope that if you're telling your friend to like Wes, if you have a friend like Wes that you're giving books to, maybe you're giving him Bane, maybe you're giving him Heir of the Empire, maybe you're giving him Lost Stars, maybe you're giving him Crispin, but we sure as hell know you're not giving them Invincible. And on that note, my friends, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Living Force. If you support us on Patreon, thank you so much for that support. We hope you enjoy your Attack of the Clones commentary that's coming later this week, and Rogue One is going to be on its way by the end of the month. A special thank you goes out to Cheryl Bell, OK Endar, JG Kars, Earl Q, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Tyler Latour, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. You can find us on Twitter at Living Force Pod for the show, and I'm at Eric Eilerson. Corey is at Doc Star Wars MD. Charles is at C. Henkel. Wes is at Boss Wes. A special thank you to Matt Davenport, our amazing editor, Ryan, our graphic designer extraordinaire, and Wes, our producer and community manager. Thank you to Corey, Charles, and Wes for going down memory lane with me. Thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you next week for Ronin, and as always, may the Force be with you.